Hey friends, welcome to day 7 of our stitch along. Today we are going to start working on our houses. Now this does get a little complicated because I have us going in a very specific order. You might be wondering, Sarah, why are you having me go from here to here to here to here? I stitched the houses probably about 6 times before I finally found the right method. And because we're going to be using a satin stitch on this, it is easier to be stitching into a satin stitch versus trying to stitch out of a satin stitch. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just trust the process. I know it's a little complicated. You gotta squint. If you have the kit, you gotta squint a little bit to see these numbers. So this is where looking at your digital guide might be really helpful, so you can zoom in really zoom in really close so that you can see which houses you're working on. Another thing I want to suggest is if you still have your friction pin, you could use this to mark which houses you're working on, just to kind of give yourself a little bit ease rather than looking back and forth. So today we're going to be working on houses 1 through 4. So the first one is, look, I even took me a second. I'm like, where's the middle? Here's the middle. The first one is this one right here. So I'm going to do a little one, and this is going to get covered up, so it doesn't really matter. Number 2 is this little house right next to it. Not the best two, but you know, I just need it for a small reference. 3, and then 4 is right, not the skinny building, but the one right next to it. Okay, and you will have to look back for the numbers, but I have my numbers here in order of what we're going to be using today. So it's 3857, 3862, 842, and then 434. So let's get ready to start stitching. Okay, so let's get started. We're starting here with house number 1, and we're going to be using 3857, and we're going to be doing 6 strands. So you're just going to pull, remember, from the number side, 1 arm length. You're not going to use the whole arm length, but I always like to pull an arm length just in case. So I'm going to cut that, tie off at the end. Oh, if I actually manage to make the tie stay and not come off. Cut the excess. Get my needle. That would have been helpful to already have. There we go. And we are going to be using a satin stitch, and this time we're going to be doing our satin stitch in a vertical, because we were horizontal last time. And this will just help the windows to stick out a little more from the house. So same as the windows, we're always going to start in one direction and work another direction. So for the houses, I'm going to start at the top and work down. So I like to start, typically when I'm doing a satin stitch, I tend to start like in the middle sometimes and then work to the left or to the right. For these, I find it a little bit easier to kind of create your first straight line for the side of the building and then move to the right. So I'm going to start right here at the top, far left of building number 1. And I do prefer to start at the top for these, because also when we do this little hill here at the bottom, I don't want to be running into a bunch of back knots, the little knots that you have right here. Okay, make sure your string floss is nice and flat, and then you're going to go straight down the bottom. And sometimes what I like to do, just to make sure my line that I drew is nice and straight, is I'll kind of pull my string down where it's supposed to go, so I can just confirm, okay, if I'm going to go down right here, is it really going to look straight? And then if you pull it through and you're like, that doesn't look straight, just fix it. No worries. So I'm going to come back to the top. And this is 6 strands, so you don't have to be right on top of every single stitch. And there can be a little bit of a space between, not much, just a little bit, so that the floss can kind of spread its wings. Okay, now as you can see, we are pretty close to that window. I'm going to kind of use my fingers to push the thread together. We're pretty close to that window, but not close enough that we can't do another, whoopsies, one more stitch. So I'm going to come back to the top one more time, and I might make this one a little bit closer so that I'm not overlapping my window a little bit. Come straight down. Okay, so that I feel like covers that left side pretty well. So now I'm going to come to the top, and this time instead of coming all the way down, I'm going to stop at that window. And you can kind of try to slide your needle under the window just a little bit so that you're making sure you're getting nice and close and not leaving a gap. Sorry, I'm turning it towards my light a little bit so I can see a little bit better. I don't think I'm happy with that stitch. I'm going to take it out. It looks like it came up a little too high. So I'm going to take that out. I'm using the back of my needle to do this, to get it initially up so that I'm not using the sharp point. Okay. Rethread. Maybe. Okay, let's try that again. Looks like I went just a little too high. I'm gonna bring this a little closer to me, bring y'all a little bit closer, make you go up a little, zoom in a little. The way I can make sure I'm close enough to my piece. Okay. So I'm gonna come down this time just a little bit, so I'm not gonna go in that same hole. And I do sometimes, if you notice, sometimes I put my needle through it and I kind of push it downward a little bit because it'll kind of show me how the thread is going to pull and where it's located at, so I can kind of see if I'm going off track. Okay, so I'm going to try and push this under the window just a little bit. Oh man, I had a hard time pulling that one through. Okay, do another one. Kind of scoot under that window just a tad. Okay, so it looks like I have two above the window, and now I'm going to come straight down onto the side a little bit. Ooh, come on. Looks like there'll be room for about 3, so it looks like there are 3 on both sides. And then 2 above the window. But yours might be a little different. And you could always do fewer strands if you wanted. You don't have to do the full 6 strands. I did like the houses to look a little more full. And it fills them up more quickly. If you do less strands, it'll take you longer to fill in the whole space. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to do something contrary to what I've told you to do. In order to best get from the fill in this little area there in the middle, so it's not a U, an upside down U, we're going to go from the bottom to the top to fill in those windows. Now, the only time I do that is for these windows where you need to fill in the little bit of gaps that are right underneath them. So I'm going to start on the right, just because I finished off on the right, so might as well come up to the right and go to the top, come right under that window. And the windows do get a little hidden, but they're just meant to poke out just a tad. I mean, they had candlelight, right? The windows probably weren't very bright. Ooh, Sarah, you're so funny. I feel like I'm going crazy talking to myself for the last 6 days now. Okay. Again, sliding kind of under that window just a little. And that looks, because I did do 2 on the top, so 2 on the bottom should be fine, but you can kind of move your fingers around to see if there's any gaps. I think that seems, I'm satisfied with that, because it's not like it's going to be moving around a lot once you've finished stitching it, but just use your fingers to kind of, use fingers. You can use the dull side of your needle to kind of just rub it down and make sure everything looks good. And then you're going to want to tie this off, because we're not going to use this color again until the next house that uses this color. And you don't want to leave all this extra string out here, because then it's going to get caught up in your other stitches. So then you're going to tie it off. Whoop, my hoop's coming out of my stand. Okay, so tie it off, cut, and if you have a full skein, what you can do is you can either go ahead and tie off the bottom, since you know you're going to use this thread again at full 6 strand, and so that way it's just kind of ready for you, and because it won't kind of fall apart on you. So I'm going to tie a little knot on mine, and then I'm going to wrap it around the number right here, so that way I know which number it is when I come back to use it. Ah. Without, you know, making an absolute mess. Okay, so this one will be ready for me next time I need to use it. Okay, so that was our first house. Now, the second house, you're going to do the exact same thing. This one has no window, so it's going to be even easier. You'll just start at the top, go straight down. Number 3, start at the top, go straight down. And number 4, exact same thing, no windows, makes it a little bit easier. So the rest of this video, I'm going to fast forward through it, come back to the end, and I'll give you a little hurrah for the end and send you off on your way. Okay friends, so that is the end of day 7. We have finished our first 4 houses. You have the weekend to catch up on anything, but if you noticed in yesterday's post, I did say you'll want to finish on time and on schedule today. So, because the reason is, if you post this completed up to day 7 in the comments on the Facebook group, you'll be entered into another giveaway, and I'll explain what those fun giveaway things are in the post. So hopefully this is not too much for you today and you're able to catch up. So see you on Monday.